Hello and welcome to Well Woman. It's Sue Lynn, your hormone health coach, and thank you for tuning in. If you're looking for the latest advice on women's health, food, mood, tips, hacks, and all the hormone things, you've come to the right place. This week, Dr. Anna Young-Ferris is back with more Vedic meditation wisdom and insights into how we can heal our nervous systems from stress, busyness, and urgency culture. So I spent a beautiful morning last week with Anna in her Newport meditation studio, Newport in the northern beaches of Sydney. And I really love heading down to Anna's studio. It's just the most calming place. It's surrounded by palm trees, by water, by birds. And she made some beautiful Tulsi Rose tea. Actually really love that tea, I have to say. And as we were sipping on tea, we started talking about recording another podcast episode. And so we find ourselves here today, sharing this episode with you all. And we wanted to talk about this concept of letting go in meditation and get into, kind of the meaning of letting go. So what are we letting go into? What do we get from that? What is it that we're all striving to achieve? And what are we surrendering to when we meditate? But there's a lot more delicious detail in today's podcast episode. So I hope you really enjoy listening to Anna talking about the art of letting go, of surrendering, and how important that is for our mental and psychological and spiritual well-being. And I'm so grateful that she joined us again on Well Woman, and excited for you to hear this episode. Enjoy. Hi, Anna.
Hi, Celine.
Oh, it's so nice to see you again.
So lovely to see you as always.
Thank you for the Tulsi Rose tea last week. Absolutely love chatting with you as always. And I am super excited to be talking today with you again about letting go. So are we ready to podcast?
Sure, let's jump in.
Okay, lovely. So one of the things we talked about when we got together was this Western concept of, can we fit our meditation in? We're having trouble getting to the 2 meditations a day. I mean, for those of you, by the way, who are listening or watching in, Anna is a Vedic meditation teacher, as I've explained. And so it's part of the process that you do these 2 daily meditations. And we were talking about this in the sense of, for some people, it's really tricky to fit it in. But then on the other hand, it's something that we need to make time for, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes. And I remember you were at group meditation recently where this came up, and it comes up a lot because, as we know, Vedic meditation is a twice daily commitment optimally. Okay. There are different aspects to that, shall we say, but ultimately, if you want the maximum benefits from the Vedic meditation practice, you will prioritize the twice daily practice. First thing in the morning we talk about, and then sometime in the afternoon, evening. And this is the one that's, a real challenge. It's really challenging because the way we've structured our Western lives, our Western culture, we don't really have a space for spiritual practice, for sadhana, as we call it, or meditation. And so I've been here, so I really feel for my students when they come to me and I just can't fit it in. Like, how do I fit in this second meditation? I've put it in my diary, or I've told my family, and I talk about, just reframing this as a ritual of self-care, as something that we're doing because it's actually going to make us more effective and more productive as a human. And I know that sounds quite transactional, but and I've been here, in the throes of work, I've just got to finish that email, or I've just got to get that report out, for example. Then we kind of go, and the meditation, even though you might even have it in your diary, it just gets kind of pushed and pushed and pushed. And then all of a sudden it's, end of work time. You've got to pick up the kids, you've got to make dinner. And so what I'm really working on with my students is, when we're not meditating, so when we're making the choice to not do our practice, what we're actually doing is prioritizing stress, the stress reaction in our physiology, in our mind. And so that actually makes us less productive, less effective. Um, because what we really want to do is, and actually, this comes from one of the most famous Vedic texts called the Bhagavad Gita. And there's a line in it, Yogasta Kuru Kamani. So this is Sanskrit, and it means established in being, then I perform action. And so when we were talking about this at the group meditation, and it's a conversation that comes up quite a lot with my students, I, you know, I sort of coach students around how do you fit it in and you put it in your diary and all of that. And then I thought, no, no, no. We need to really get back to why are we meditating? What are we doing when we meditate? And why do we want to actively choose? Particularly the second one is always very elusive and hard to fit in. And so if we come back to this core principle of establish yourself in being, then perform action. So when we're sitting to meditate, and particularly with Vedic meditation, we have our beautiful mantra, this sound, this vibration that's being gifted to us from nature, and we're gently repeating it inside the mind, and we're allowing the busy thinking, doing monkey mind to settle down and de-excite the nervous system, get us out of that sympathetic nervous system into the parasympathetic rest and digest state. And then what we're starting to do is touch into that field of unbounded awareness or cosmic intelligence or being, just simple being, where we just are. We're just in the now, we're in the moment. We're not sort of distracted by the future or, thinking about the past, thinking about what's going on for dinner or what I said yesterday. We're actually being. And remember, we are humans being, even though a lot of the time we're humans doing. So when we understand this from that kind of, I guess, cosmic level, um, we realize that when we sit to meditate and we're dipping into that cosmic intelligence, that place of being, that place of stillness, then when we come out of the meditation with our eyes open, we're interacting in the world, we're writing our emails, we're, making the dinner, being with the family, being with our friends, we are in a much clearer state of consciousness, a much more expanded state of consciousness, a much less stressed state of consciousness. So, therefore, the decisions we make, the actions we take are going to be far more effective, beneficial, loving. And so, it's just for me like a no-brainer in terms of why we wouldn't prioritize our meditation and then our action rather than prioritizing our stress and then adding to that stress more and more, and it accumulates. And this is why we talk about establishing ourselves in being, then performing action, and we're going to be much better humans in our interactions, in our work, in our relationships. And that's why we do the twice daily.
Yeah, I 100%. So many things were coming up in my mind when you were talking. One of them was that for those listening and watching who have not yet tried Vedic meditation, when you get into that space, the mantra for me, it's the feeling of it now, like the actual sound has become more of a feeling. And when that kicks in, it's this very exquisite release from urgency culture. And it's just taking me very gently into somewhere. But I don't need to know where and when and how and why and all of that noise. I can just be in that, in that beautiful bliss. And so everything that you're saying about, can we prioritize this? Well, we must prioritize it. Yeah, 100%. And I've actually gotten to that point where I found myself at the kitchen sink the other day washing dishes. It was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I was going to meditate soon, but I just hadn't done it at that stage. And I'm standing there at the kitchen sink and I'm washing the dishes, and I felt that sensation come in. Just a very gentle reminder, just a reminder you need to meditate now. And so I made my cup of tea, I sat down, and then I meditated. Um, what is happening
That's
there? I'm sure that you've heard of this before. Tell me about your experience with when actually you get into a habit of prioritizing this
beautiful.
beautiful meditation and all the joys and the bliss that it brings to you. What's that like? What does that feel like for you?
Yeah, I'm so happy to hear that you've been on this journey for a few years now, and it's so nice that for you, the second, it's not even, you're not negotiating, are you going to do it? It's just, now. And it's so beautiful when you get established in that as part of, and you embody the practice because you can feel the benefits. So to just a quick note on when you said with the mantra now, it's not even like a sound necessarily, but it's a feeling. And it's a vibration. It's a vibrational quality. It's a vibration from nature. These sounds are not of human origin. They are from nature or from the divine. So this is a really beautiful process that you start to, it's not so in the mind, thinking, doing, but actually you're feeling it. And we're coming into that space, the being, which is beautiful. So thank you for sharing that. Then you were saying, so yeah, what's starting to happen? So because you've been meditating now, I forget exactly, maybe 3 or 4 years, has it been?
It was May 2022,
Okay,
and I
yeah,
was
so
at
about three
height of
years.
my anxiety at that stage. Yeah, so I have a
Yes,
good recollection because it was just after my father passed away. So
that's
that's
right. Yes.
almost 3 years now.
Yeah, amazing, amazing. And so, yeah, so what's happening because you're now established in the practice, because it can take time. There's no denying that it's tricky. As I said earlier, we have a culture that we don't really prioritize or make room or space for spiritual practice. It's kind of like with exercise, we're doing it super early in the morning or how to fit it into the day. Like we've got these, not everybody listening, but some of us will have the 9 to 5 job, and it's like, yeah, it's mad the way we've structured our lives. It really doesn't need to be the norm anymore. And I think we're seeing that kind of that culture breaking down, which is great. But essentially, what's happening with you is that your physiology knows that it needs that filling up of the bliss chemicals. So I know your first meditation is non-negotiable, so that's great. And most students, if you're kind of thinking about whether you can or can't do this, most students, the first non-negotiable as soon as you wake up is more or less pretty easy to establish. And then it's just this afternoon or evening one. And I work really closely with all my students on helping them how to kind of integrate that. But what's happening is your physiology, so your body, your nervous system, your brain is sort of telling you that it's time that you want to be filled up again with those bliss chemicals. And I'll give a little plug to I don't know if you've mentioned this yet. I don't think you have our episode 17 and 18 where we
I
go,
was just thinking of
yes,
that. This is where we have to make sure that everybody knows that we have
yes,
already recorded two beautiful episodes together,
yes.
all about bliss chemistry.
Yes, yes. I think 17 is all about sort of learning and what it takes to learn and what the technique is. And then I think the 18th episode is more around the bliss chemistry and what that means. So yeah, go back because we might be jumping if this is the first time you're hearing from us. But essentially that's what's happening. Your brain, your physiology, your mind is saying, Su Lin, I need the bliss. I can feel it draining. I've had a big day. I've been in the world. Demands have been coming in, been working, been giving out the energy, been getting bills, been running around after the kids, the family, friends. And so it's time to give back to you. And we do that through this beautiful process that we're facilitating, which will help us not only remove the stress from the nervous system, but also fill up on the bliss chemicals and help us to really establish that being within our physiology. So
Mm, mm.
that's
I
what's happening. Your body's kind of telling you.
I absolutely love that quote that you mentioned before, establish first in being and then perform action. Because I guess you could translate that also into the meditation is the practice of being. So meditate before you do anything. Like first thing in the morning, absolutely meditate before you go out of the house or get out of bed.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, beautiful.
And because
So
you just feel like clearer, calmer, like it's just the students know, like it's so curious how everyone knows the benefits, but why is there this resistance, you
yes,
know?
that's what I want to ask you. So what is the resistance to letting go to something like meditation? You mentioned before that something about the Western world. I mean, this Vedic meditation was, if I'm right, designed for the Western world. And we've
Yeah.
got all these kind of barriers in our minds about, oh no, but I have to do this or I have to put that first. And that's why I feel like it's such a liberation from that urgency culture where we just prioritize things because we think they're urgent. But actually, when you prioritize your self-care, then you're in a much better place to address anything that is urgent or anything that could be stressful. So yeah, let's talk about letting go and the barriers to letting go.
Sure, sure. So, yeah, so this practice is really a practice of letting go, and people don't necessarily know that when they first learn. And you mentioned also, just to come back to the point around, so the Vedic meditation that we teach was actually cognized by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, and he fashioned it in such a way that it was relevant for the Western mind or the Western culture, in that, these 20 minutes twice per day was enough for the Western mind to dip into the bliss, to dip into that being, that cosmic intelligence on a twice daily basis and feel and get the full benefits of perhaps, say, some other techniques where, you're required to sit in silence for 10 hours or 2 weeks or a year, and then you'll feel the benefits. But this particular technique, the one that I teach, is very much fashioned for the Western mind and the Western culture. So that's like a really important point. So, and it's accessible. I think that's, 20 minutes, 40 minutes a day sounds like a lot, but really, maybe check out how much time you spend on your social media or doing other things. I'm sure that the 20 minutes can be found, and then in the morning and the afternoon. So then to the point around the letting go. So what we're doing when we're sitting, and I love this urgency culture that you mentioned. I haven't heard of that term before, but I know exactly what you mean. And that's very much, how we're sort of cultured to believe that everything has to happen, and time is so important, and we're bound by all this time, and we've got to get everything done. And it's just, yeah, it's just fascinating how this is how we're playing this narrative out, I guess, in our culture. So when we're sitting to meditate, we're sitting down and we are letting go to some extent. We're letting go of that culture. We're letting go of all of those conditions, social values, beliefs. And we're actually saying, hang on a minute, I just want to kind of, pause on all of that for a moment. And I want to get in touch with that inner strength, that inner stillness, the inner bliss, the inner being, so many words we could use. And as you know, it's a direct experience. It's not something someone can tell you. Once you learn in the correct manner and you receive your mantra and you practice and you get the teaching, then anyone can feel this bliss. It's right here within us. And so what we're doing is we're letting go of the external outside material world that's very convincing, the one where all the emails come in and the social media and Instagram posts and all of that. So that's what we are, sitting down, and we're just letting go of that and letting go of all the demands and the stresses and the thoughts, so many thoughts in our nervous system playing out, repetitive thoughts. And that's really when we're sitting to meditate, we're making that choice to just, put all of that on pause. We're not saying we're letting it go completely, but for the 20 minutes, we're prioritizing our own self-care. We're prioritizing our connection within with that divine cosmic intelligence and having that connection and realizing. And then, ultimately at some point around the 20-minute mark, we'll come back out and we'll be in the world and we can go back to all of that external noise, shall we say. So I guess there is some resistance to, oh, but maybe it's a fear of I'm going to miss out on something. I guarantee you're not going to miss anything. It's usually there's a lot of repetition in that material world. And that idea of letting go is really, yeah, really kind of it takes some time to understand what it is we're letting go of and what it is where, you often hear in kind of spiritual circles or yoga classes, like just surrender. Just surrender. I don't know if you've heard that. Like, just surrender and everything will be fine. And what that's another piece that it's taking me time. And I think being a teacher and thinking about my students a lot and, being on this journey, I sort of said, what is it that what are we actually surrendering? What is it that we're surrendering? And we are surrendering that individuality, that small self. And this is when we sit to meditate. We're actually making that conscious choice that we are going to let go and surrender our individuality, the small self, the ego, perhaps. And we're prioritizing connecting with our divine higher self, that bliss, that being that resides within. So that's like, the beautiful piece of news. And it's kind of a relief from that, the monkey mind that's running around and, keeping us very busy, it seems.
Yeah, we have become overly identified with our physical bodies. I watched this movie the other day called The Substance. It was so graphic. And in all honesty, I flicked on Netflix and had no idea what I was getting myself into because I didn't read any information about it. I just popped it on. It was a body horror movie. And
Oh,
so I sat through 2 hours of flesh sounds and blood and violence and gore. But it was all about this over identification with our bodies, living through our eyes, very much invested in external validation and what people see in us. And I mean, that stuff is exhausting. I don't know about you, but as a Gen X woman, I'm a Gen X woman. When I grew up, we didn't have social media. In my, 20s, it wasn't really a thing. It was only, I think, my mid 30s. And then I could start to see, yeah, that's having an impact as well. But yeah, just the amount of pressure and the pressure we put on ourselves and the expectations we have of ourselves, that's kind of like the narrative that's running in the background. And I wonder what role that plays in the resistance to actually doing something for ourselves, to putting ourselves first and saying, well, yes, it's 5 o'clock. I know you'd love your dinner now, but I'm going to go and meditate because that's how I nourish myself. And then I will be there for you, like if you're in a family role or if it's at work and you have all these expectations, it's very hard to put ourselves first. I feel like that's a real Gen X woman thing, something we inherited from that time period. So I definitely see how that narrative could play into the resistance to putting oneself first and caring for oneself and I guess kind of surrendering and letting go, not just of the small self, but surrendering and letting go of all of the expectations that we put on ourselves as well.
beautiful. Yeah, couldn't have said that better myself. Because yes, it is the small self, but it is also all the demands and expectations that you're letting go of just for those 20 minutes. And a good point, if you're making dinner, I always love the put a baked dinner on. Then you put it on, go and meditate, and then come back and dinner's ready. So everyone's happy. Um, but a couple of points just picking up there. So I haven't even heard of this as a genre, the body horror. That just sounds awful. I know one thing is for sure, as I have become kind of I don't know how to say this, like more connected with my nervous system and more conscious, I guess, of my nervous system, I've become more sensitive. I've already, and my sisters and mum will attest to this. We're already a very sensitive family. However, I even more so, I think through years and years and decades of spiritual practice, become more sensitive and aware of what it is my nervous system is consuming, and making conscious choices. I'm not even sure how you sat through it for 2 hours.
I
I would
honestly
have
don't
probably
know.
switched it off after about 5 minutes.
I don't know.
Like
It it dawned on me at about 20 minutes in that it was a horror movie. But
you kept going. Yeah.
well, I was
Anyway, so
fascinated. Yeah.
yeah, well, yeah. So there's a curiosity. That's
But
fine too. I mean, it's
you're
not.
right, because
Yeah,
that it disturbed me. I had nightmares that night. I
yeah,
felt like I was in that movie. And so is that
yeah,
this nervous system that becomes so raw in a way that it's,
mm,
yeah,
yeah.
more
Because
vulnerable to those
it's
impressions.
absolutely. And often in sleep and in dreams, that is a form of stress release as well. So, whatever you're consuming, that will imprint in dreams. Like, as you know, when we go through our meditation practice, the thoughts can arise. And as we know with Vedic meditation, it's okay to have thoughts in meditation. It's actually a good thing because it means those stresses or those stressful reactions are releasing from your nervous system. So go back and look at episode 17 and 18 for more
Yes,
on that.
absolutely. I'll put the
But
links in the caption,
yeah,
everybody, so you can
yeah.
just head there directly.
Because it's a big misconception that everyone's like, oh, I need to meditate and I can't have thoughts. So that's always a good thing to remind people during these kind of meditation chats. But yeah, we really do need to just be conscious of what it is we're consuming. So I consciously do not consume, mainstream news. I mean, I am on social media, so I definitely see things, and then I have a very active friendship group, and they're always, I'm receiving what's going on in the world through that medium. But it's a conscious choice. And actually, someone said to me the other day, "But you need to know this stuff," and I'm like, do I though? Like, really? So anyway, each to their own on that. I seem to find out what I need to know, and I'm very aware. But to your point around, why aren't we prioritizing? Why do we resist to sit down? And the other beautiful framing I have is that this is the 20 minutes twice per day is this opportunity not only to kind of, relieve yourself from your worldly duties, but also to connect in with this divine aspect of yourself, or your higher self. And this is a great part of anyone kind of on this journey of awakening. It's about your awakening to the truth. This is the way that you have and you develop and you form a relationship with this divine part of yourself that in our culture, we've pretty much tried to, sever the connection. I think I've said that before, maybe on the other podcast, to that part of ourself, and or our history and our knowledge and what you were saying before about, where how we've grown up and times have changed, is that the way that we connect with the divine is through these organized religious groups, shall we say. Got to be careful what I'm saying here. And it's not actually a direct connection. And Vedic meditation will give you a direct connection. It's about you and the divine. There's no other kind of medium or conditioning filtered within that. I hope that kind of makes sense what I'm trying to say there. It's just a direct connection with you and nature. And that's
Mm,
like,
mm,
what could be more special and beautiful and more important than that as a human being? We're the only uh, animals, shall we say, that have the ability to connect with the divine and awaken
mm,
to our true self. All other animals are, in the Vedic perspective, they are, I guess, I don't want to say lower order, but it's a great privilege to be given a human soul, to be given a human life. And so we don't want to waste it.
I love that. Absolutely
Yeah.
love that. And in that direct connection, is this cosmic intelligence? I mean, how would you describe what you are actually having a direct connection to someone who's never done meditation before or never had that experience.
Beautiful. I think the best word is peace. That would
Mm.
probably be the easiest. And, you know, someone that hasn't yet had this beautiful experience, there's just this enduring, unending peace of actually, you know, there is only this one existence connection, this pure consciousness, this pure peace. And when you experience that, you know, right from the start, or maybe it takes some time and some practice because there's a bit of clearing and unstressing to go through, depending on whatever's within your nervous system. But once you have that direct experience, it's just, yeah, it's so divine.
Mm.
It really is. Yeah.
And so for you, is meditation a form of devotion?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I won't say it was my first. I would say my first form of devotion would be my yoga asana practice, and that's really what then brought me to the meditation
Ah.
practice. So yoga asana, you know, going to a class, having beautiful teachers, and you know, really honoring the body and realizing the physiology, because ultimately you do the yoga, the asana, the reason we do that is to prepare the mind and the body to meditate and to have a deep experience in meditation. Again, something sort of typical of the West. We've kind of lost the part about meditating. A lot of people just think that yoga is going to a yoga class and getting hot and sweaty. That is obviously a beautiful part of it, but the reason technically is that you do the asana, do the postures, and do the breath work and the pranayama, and then from that you sit and meditate and connect
Mm.
connect with the divine.
Yeah, I wonder
Yeah.
if we're going to have a sort of a circling back to that origin wisdom with yoga. Because I see it in my son. His generation is so curious and they question everything. So yeah, I know what you mean with yoga, and I feel like it's, you know, for a period there it was a bit of body beautiful and, you know, like quasi spirituality and all that. Yeah, and a lot of people would talk about it as being a preparation for meditation, but actually seeing that in action was a different story. But yeah, I think that's gorgeous. You had that journey because you started almost like you started through the physicality of it and got more deep into the spirituality of it as you
Mhm.
went along.
Exactly. And just became aware of the mind and its ways, shall we say, and then aware of the witness, you know, which becomes really super clear when you start meditating regularly, the witness, which is the higher self, and you know, the witness of the small self that's running around in the world and doing all the doing. So, and to your point around, you know, that I also see an awakening in the yogic communities. It's beautiful around me, you know, and probably just really in the last couple of years where that I think that direct connection and that realization, and there are different channels to connect with the divine. It's not just through Vedic meditation. There are other beautiful ways and means as well. So I do think what is beautiful to see is teachers, yoga teachers, uh, really bringing that spirituality, I guess we could call it, out into the class. It's not just about the physicality and the physical postures. There's a deeper kind of caretaking, which is beautiful to see. It's not just
Mm,
the Lululemon pants and whatnot, you know. There's actually there's a reason we're doing this, and there's a reason that it's become so popular because humans in the West, particularly, and I can only really speak from that framing, are craving this connection. There's that, you know, as I said, there is that disconnect,
mm,
that severing of our connection. And that's why, you know, people are flocking to yoga because they start to get some relief from that monkey mind, from the thinking and the doing, and they start to feel into that being. So, and then as we know, Vedic meditation is a very effective, efficient gold standard technique to really help you to access that on a twice daily basis, rather than just once a week, maybe in a yoga class for the last 10 minutes. It's really allowing you to have that direct connection.
I mean,
Yeah.
what an amazing yoga class if you do all the asanas and then they give you 2 hours to lie there. I would be signing up for that class. So two things, just my monkey mind going. So the first one was when you were talking about, that severance that occurs. From my work, I can definitely see a little bit of a severing from nature. So as we get more indoors and more sedentary, and this is more speaking just generally, and for our next generations as well, less time in nature, less sort of spacious time in nature, if you like, and we're getting this sort of nature deficit disorder setting in. That's something that I feel Vedic meditation is really good for, because I hope this makes sense, because I feel like it connects me when I'm meditating to myself as nature, so that I'm not separate to nature anymore. I am now part of nature. And I'm just sitting there and I'm just allowing the ebbs and flows of that practice. And so I think what you're doing is actually incredibly important for all of us to be able to be a bit of a bridge for us to the nature within ourselves, and it takes us a step further to then thinking, well, now I'm in this place of bliss and peace. Let's spend the afternoon by the beach, or let's go for a walk this evening after dinner. It's kind of like seeding the possibilities for a deeper connection with nature, as well as just a deeper connection with ourselves.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And I've been getting a lot of little goosebumps a lot as you've been talking, particularly then. So yeah, look, severing, it might be a little bit dramatic. Probably what I should reframe that or rephrase that as, it's like we're covering up the light, we're covering up that light, that spark of the light that's within us all, which we'll talk more about next time. But absolutely, like when we're sitting to meditate, it's this mantra, as I said earlier, is this gift from nature. So it's not of human origin. These sounds were heard by the rishis and the sages 5,000, 6,000 years ago. And then through this lineage, this Vedic meditation teaching lineage, these sounds have been passed down, or I like to say vibrations. And so that's exactly what's happening. It's like the universal soul consciousness vibration. When you're sitting in your own personal practice, it's connecting, or it's enlivening your own soul, your own individual soul, Atman, we call it. And so that's why then there's that feeling that there is just this oneness. There is like no separation between you and nature. And that is the ultimate truth of the Vedic knowledge and wisdom and philosophy, that there is only one thing. And then, yeah, that's so beautiful. And so therefore, yeah, that nature aspect and that feeling of wanting to be in nature. I think when you were talking, it was like what you're describing is being. It's not, it's not clouded by the thinking, doing, and all of the different stimuli that has kind of come in over the last day or week or whatever it might be. And absolutely, like for our children, and whether you have your own children or you have nieces and nephews or neighbors, we need to help our children connect within and support that. And that's something that yeah, we don't see that at all enough, particularly in our Western culture. And that's something, I love teaching children, and it doesn't have to be, give them a mantra, all of that, even just those opportunities to be in nature and connect. Like children are so conscious, but then what happens is we give them an iPad or a screen. That's it. That definitely severs the ties. So the more we can provide those opportunities for them to be in nature and, directly connect with like the energy in a tree. I know that sounds
That
Might
sounds
sound a
like
bit
a dream,
out there, but
a
honestly,
beautiful dream
it's so
reality.
beautiful. Yes. And the
Let's
energy's
dream it
there.
into being.
Yes. Yes. So, yeah, it is. And it just, you just realize how much noise there is in the mind, in the world, in media, in most of our workplaces. It's, yeah. And then that's why people are coming for healing and needing that healing and going to get beautiful herbs to help regulate. And, we just need to regulate those nervous systems. So
Yeah.
that's,
And coming
that's
to your group meetings, which is so beautiful, such a gorgeous space, and coming to do the training. Um, one more question.
yes.
So I've been thinking, are we as a culture in the West addicted to stress? Is that part of that resistance?
Ooh,
Hmm.
juicy.
I mean, does the stress
Juicy.
serve us in some way? Does it justify this narrative that we've created that we need to be busy and doing all the time?
Yeah, I like when you're speaking, I'm thinking we're adrenaline junkies, right? Because that's what
Yeah.
the stress is feeding off. And I talk about this a little bit sometimes in the course around like why do we have this kind of physiological system in our body, the fight or flight system, right? Which is it's kind of inherited, say, from the caveman days, cavewoman, caveman days, where, and this is, I guess, this is also talking to the beauty of the ability of the human to evolve and to evolve to our highest or awaken to our highest being. So the caveman days, I don't know, 25,000 years ago, shall we say, our physiology we needed to be able to react really quickly for our survival. So, um, you know, we are out foraging or hunting. Apparently, it was the women doing the hunting, not necessarily the men, as that's the latest um, discovery. Anyway, and so all of a sudden, a saber-toothed tiger is facing you and your family, and the physiology, kicks into this response. And it's like, okay, am I going to, fight, or am I going to flee, or am I going to fly? And so, the pupils will dilate, the digestion shuts down, and that's when those stress hormones start to run through the body. So the adrenaline, the cortisol, it's kind of getting you prepared to either, fight this tiger, this saber-toothed tiger, or run really, really fast. And so what's happened, if we fast forward to, human evolution, civilization, industrialization, to now, whatever we call the world we're living in now, I don't know, is it the iPhone generation? Computers and screens indoors, but we still have this human physiology. And so what's happening is we kick into fight or flight when someone cuts us off in traffic, or we kick into fight or flight if we get, a bill in the mail that we weren't expecting, or the coffee barista is taking too long to make your coffee in the morning and you've got to get to a meeting, and we're like, come on, and that adrenaline starts surging. So yeah, I would say that there could be some sort of addiction to this stress. It's kind of, and it's also making us very sick. Um, so what's happened is that physiological function is still within us, and then but this external circumstances have changed. Luckily, there's not saber-toothed tigers just roaming around the streets. But what we really haven't necessarily done so well in this kind of age that we're living through is learn how to regulate those emotions and learn how to respond rather than react. And obviously the fight or flight is a actual I'm going to die or not die if I don't react straight away. But what we're doing is we're kicking that you know, in scenarios like getting cut off in traffic, getting, yelling at the drivers, when really that's not a do or die situation. So we need to learn how to just flow. And that's also what I love about the more we meditate, the more we tap into our being, life becomes easy and we flow and we don't like things, situations, demands are placed on us, but we can just kind of pause, we can respond, we can adapt, and that's also a beautiful benefit of the practice is learning how to not react in our kind of small self ways, but tapping into our reserve of the higher self and that energy that we've been cultivating and realizing that, hang on, I can respond here, or okay, I got to move in another direction now. Let's adapt. And that's that, and emotionally regulate. And that's something I'm really trying to teach my children in particular and my students, because life pretty much does not go as planned. That's one thing we can definitely know for certain. We definitely know one thing that doesn't change is that there is always change, right?
Yeah,
So
so true.
it's like, now sometimes I'm going through a bit of a phase in my life where it's just like, okay, come on, universe, just hit me. What's next? I'm ready. Like, I'm ready. I know it's not going to be what I planned. So, and just this is where surrendering, the surrender, coming back to that point, which I'm glad we've come back to this. It's when you just, you know that there is a higher order, a higher power, a divine being, pure consciousness, God, maybe, whatever kind of word you want to use. There's a cosmic intelligence. I think that's really nice. That's a nice way to frame it. That's actually guiding and in control. And no matter how much we try and control, and that's very much part of that resistance, is that, resistance of actually letting go of control and letting go. Um, when we let go, not saying that we don't act, we definitely want to keep acting and moving in directions, but not necessarily being attached to what the outcomes are. So we make the moves, we we establish in being first, we meditate first, and then we perform the action. But another great teaching in that the text that I talked about, the Bhagavad Gita, is that we act, but then we're not attached because whatever's going to happen, we can't control the outcome. Applying for a job, a relationship, our children, performing in a particular way, where we can't control that. And we have to have this kind of this knowing and this understanding that there's a cosmic intelligence at play that we've been tapping into directly. And once we can just let go and surrender to that cosmic plan, it kind of makes life really easy. And there is that peace, that underlying peace that you know that everything's going to be okay. And if it isn't, then we just adapt and move, in the next direction and keep doing. So,
I'm sure you've heard in herbalism, the adaptogens are all the rage at the moment. These are herbs that help to build our adaptation energy in the physical body. And this is, in a way, building that energy in the psychological body.
yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So yeah, a great
Yes.
combination. Powerhouse.
Yes. And by the way, can I throw in my favorite adaptogens? Ashwagandha would probably come out top because it's an alkaloidal herb. So it has the ability to kind of affect our I guess our psychology or just how we behave as well as just keeping us nice and calm. And then the other one that I love, which we were talking about the other day, is Bacopa
Mm,
monieri, which is sometimes called Brahmi. And both of them are Ayurvedic herbs. Yeah.
beautiful.
But having something like that in combination with doing your meditation, everybody, is such a beautiful way to self-care and get close, if not to achieve this beautiful, blissful, deep, peaceful state
Yeah.
that Anna is describing here.
And everybody wants peace. It's universal, like peace in the mind, peace in the body. So yeah, I think that's why we're doing it. So if if we go right back to the start, if we're resisting learning to meditate or resisting doing our practice, just come back to that. What is it that you want? Do you want peace? Because what's that quote? I hope I get it right. Ego says, once I find peace, then I'll meditate. Spirit says, meditate, then I'll find peace. Spirit being higher self, the divine, all of those words we've used to describe that innate reserve that is right here within all of us. We just need to have the different techniques and ways to strengthen that connection.
Yeah, that's the perfect quote to end on, actually. Perfect. So have you got any workshops coming up if somebody wanted to jump in and start their training and get their practice underway? When's your next workshop?
Yes, of course. So at the end of the month, I have a course. So it's the
Amazing.
4 sessions, 4 short sessions over 4 days, and you'll learn this incredible, life-changing, and I don't say that lightly, speak to my students like Sue Lin, technique. And then you'll have, ongoing support, dedicated support. I really am all about helping people meditate. And sort of, again, going back to the start of our conversation, helping get our students or my students to that twice daily, because that's really where the benefits start to just multiply. And I should say, though, if you're meditating once a day, you're also going to be in a much better place than if you're not meditating at all. And, sometimes every student's different, but sometimes it can take a little bit of time to establish that twice daily practice. Some students just slip right in, others teeter between, others just are happy once a day and still getting beautiful benefits.
So everybody, I'm going to put those dates down below. And also, if by chance that date has passed, keep checking because I'll update them. Anna teaches several workshops throughout the year, so there should always be an opportunity for you to go and train with her.
Yes.
And so Anna, beautiful Anna, where can people find you if they wanted to follow you on the socials or connect with you?
Thank you. Yes. So website, www.annayoungferris.com. So you can pop that in the show notes. I'm on Instagram at Anna Young-Ferris. And I should also mention, if you're not ready to take the deep dive and learn the full technique, I have a beautiful 9-minute, only 9 minutes, free guided meditation, Connect with Heart. So also that's available to everyone. So Sulin can definitely pop that in the notes as well. And would love you to come and join our community. I also do group meditation meetings twice monthly. So you can join online, and then once per month they are in person. And I open those to everyone. So even if you're not a Vedic meditator yet, you're welcome to come and join in our community and have an experience. And lots of other juicy events and ways just to help. I just want to help people connect with their heart, connect with their divine, and realize the peace that is there. Yeah.
And speaking of heart and divine, can we get together again and do another episode? Because I would love to talk to you more about that devotional practice. What does that look like if someone has a devotional practice? I mean, why have it in the first place? Does that sound like something you'd like to talk about?
I would love to. I'd love to share what I've been doing in addition and my journey, and building into that kind of the ritual of self-care that I've made my meditation practice, and then what I call divine devotion or bhakti, and what that looks like. So the Vedic meditation is a very inward practice, and what I'd love to share with you next time is how we can take these practices more outward, and the beautiful love, the unconditional love that comes with that.
Well, I'm definitely all for that. So let's get a date in the book. And thank you so much, Dr. Anna Young-Ferris, for joining me today. It's been beautiful to have you here again on Well Woman. Always so nice to catch up with you.
Thank you, Sue Lin. Such a pleasure to be here with you and your community, and I can't wait to meet again.
Thank you for listening to the Well Woman podcast. The information, opinions, and advice in this podcast is not intended to replace professional medical advice, and it's for general information and educational purposes only. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast may not always be those of the host. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you soon in another episode of Well Woman.